The moment most senior travelers board a plane, they make the same 10 mistakes, and they don't realize it until something goes wrong at 35,000 feet. A 68-year-old woman boarded a flight to Phoenix last spring, sat down, buckled up, and never once did what I'm about to show you. 6 hours later, she landed stiff, dehydrated, disoriented, and with a blood clot forming in her left calf. None of that had to happen. What you do in the first 10 minutes after boarding determines how you feel when you land. And here's what airlines will never tell you. Most of the things I'm about to share cost nothing. They take less than 10 minutes combined, and after 60 years on this earth, you've earned the right to fly comfortably, safely, and on your own terms. So let's get into it, starting with something so simple, it almost sounds too easy to matter. Thing number 10, photograph your overhead bin and seat area. This one catches people off guard every single time I mention it, and honestly, I get the reaction. You've just hauled your carry-on down a crowded aisle, excuse me past 4 strangers, survived the overhead bin shuffle, and finally collapsed into your seat. The absolute last thing on your mind is playing photographer. I understand that completely, but give me 60 more seconds, because this one has saved people hundreds of dollars. The moment you stow your bag and get settled, pull out your phone and take 2 quick photographs. One of your bag sitting in the overhead bin, and one of your immediate seat area, including the seat pocket in front of you. Here's why that first photo matters more than it sounds. Airlines pull carry-on bags for last-minute gate checking on full flights more often than they'll ever publicly admit. When that happens in a rush, bags get tagged incorrectly, loaded onto the wrong cart, or grabbed by another passenger who genuinely believes it's theirs. A photograph with a timestamp showing your bag in that bin on that flight is documentation. It's not foolproof, but it has resolved more than one baggage dispute that would have otherwise gone nowhere. Now here's the second reason, and this is the one that actually keeps me disciplined about it. Seat pockets. That little fabric pouch hanging in front of you is essentially a black hole with a zipper. Reading glasses, hearing aids, prescription bottles, phones, wallets, and passports vanish into seat pockets every single day on flights across this country and are never seen again. A 71-year-old retired teacher lost her hearing aids in a seat pocket on a flight from Atlanta to Denver. She noticed 40 minutes after landing. By the time she called the airline, the plane had already pushed back on its return leg somewhere over Kansas. Gone forever. Replacement cost $900 for a seat pocket. A quick word before we go on. As we get older, flying doesn't have to become more stressful or more expensive. There are free airline services, seat upgrades, airport assistance, and simple travel tricks that many seniors never realize they're entitled to. I've gathered 101 of the most useful airline secrets into a book called The Ultimate Senior Air Travel Bible. I won't mention it again. If you'd like to pick up a copy, you'll find the link in the description. 1 photograph before you put anything into it. 1 photograph before you stand up to deplane. 4 seconds each way. Your defense. Photograph the bin, photograph the seat area, and physically check that pocket before you move. Every flight. Make it as automatic as buckling your seatbelt. Thing. Number 9. Tell the flight attendant about your medical conditions. Before pushback now, I know what some of you are thinking. I'm not going to announce my business to a stranger on an airplane, and I respect that. I do. But hear me out, because this one could genuinely save your life. Flight attendants are trained in emergency medical response. What they are not trained in is reading your mind. If you have a heart condition, a history of fainting, severe allergies, diabetes, a recent surgery, or any condition that could become relevant at altitude, the crew needs to know before the door closes, not during a medical event, before one. Here's what most passengers over 60 don't realize. Cabin pressure at cruising altitude is equivalent to sitting at about 6,000 to 8,000 feet above sea level. For most healthy adults, that's a non-issue. For someone with cardiovascular concerns, respiratory conditions, or recent surgical procedures, that pressure change is physiologically significant. It can affect oxygen levels, blood pressure, and how your body processes medication. A 66-year-old man on a transatlantic flight didn't mention his recent cardiac stent procedure to the crew. Midway over the Atlantic, he began experiencing chest discomfort. The flight diverted. The crew did everything right, but they lost critical minutes because they didn't know his history and couldn't locate his medications quickly enough. You don't need to give a full medical history, you just need 30 seconds with a flight attendant before pushback. The magic phrase, I just want to let you know I have a heart condition and I'm sitting in seat 14B. My medication is in my front shirt pocket if anything comes up. That's it. That's the whole conversation. Most flight attendants will thank you, note your seat, and check on you during the flight. Some will quietly flag your seat in their own notes. Your defense? Before the door closes, find the nearest flight attendant and give them 30 seconds of context. You're not being dramatic, you're being smart. Thing number 8, locate all 4 emergency exits, not just the nearest one. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually counted the exits on a plane? Not just glanced at the safety card while secretly reading your magazine, actually counted them. Most passengers look up, spot the 2 exits at the front, assume they're covered, and go back to their crossword. Here's the problem with that. In an actual emergency evacuation, the exits nearest to you may be blocked, jammed, or inaccessible. Federal aviation data shows that in survivable aircraft accidents, passengers who knew the location of multiple exits had significantly better outcomes than those who only knew one. And here's the part that applies specifically to us. As we get older, our reaction time in high-stress situations can slow. That's not an insult, that's physiology, which means the time we spend searching for an exit in a dark, smoke-filled, tilted cabin is time we don't have. The solution is to remove that search entirely before you ever need it. The moment you sit down, count the rows to the nearest exit both in front of you and behind you. Then locate the 2 additional exits further back. Run your hand along the seat row if you need a tactile reference point. This is not paranoia. This is what pilots, flight crew, and aviation safety professionals do on every single flight they take as passengers. Your defense. Count exits, both directions, every flight. Takes 60 seconds. Costs nothing. Thing number 7. Set a hydration alarm. Before the cabin door closes. All right, I'll confess something. I used to be terrible at this. I'd board a flight, get settled, put on a movie, and look up 4 hours later feeling like I'd spent the afternoon inside a hairdryer, dry mouth, headache, foggy thinking, and I knew better. Most of us know better. We just don't do it. Here's the science in plain language. Aircraft cabin humidity typically runs between 10 and 20%. Your home is probably around 40 to 50%. That gap pulls moisture out of your body at a rate most passengers dramatically underestimate. For travelers over 60, dehydration at altitude isn't just uncomfortable, it's medically relevant. It thickens the blood, raises the risk of clots, worsens joint pain, and amplifies fatigue. The problem isn't that people don't know to drink water. The problem is that cabin time distorts your sense of time. An hour feels like 20 minutes, 2 hours disappear, and by the time you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. The fix is embarrassingly simple. Before the cabin door closes, before you put your phone in airplane mode, set a repeating alarm for every 45 minutes. Label it drink water, not hydration, not something you'll dismiss, just drink water. When it goes off, drink, not a sip, an actual drink. A 73-year-old retired nurse who flies to visit her grandchildren 4 times a year told me this single habit eliminated the 2-day recovery period she used to need after every long flight. 2 days, gone, because of an alarm. Your defense? Set the alarm before the door closes, carry your own water bottle through security, refill it at the gate, and skip the alcohol and the coffee on board, at least until you've had 2 full glasses of water. I know, but your knees will thank you at baggage claim. Thing number 6, request your seat accommodation, if you haven't already. Here's something most travelers over 60 don't know, and it quietly costs them hours of unnecessary discomfort on every single flight they take. Federal law, specifically the Air Carrier Access Act, requires airlines to provide certain seating accommodations to passengers with physical needs, not disabilities, physical needs. If you cannot lower yourself easily over a fixed armrest, you are entitled to an aisle seat with a movable armrest. If you have a fused joint, a leg that cannot bend comfortably, or a condition that requires extra leg room, the airline must accommodate that, and your travel companion must be seated next to you at no additional charge, even on the cheapest fare in the cabin. The airline cannot sell that accommodation back to you as a preferred seat fee. That is not legal. Now here's the part that frustrates me. Most passengers either don't know this exists, or they called the accessibility desk before the flight and were told everything was fine, and then boarded to find their accommodation wasn't communicated to the gate agent. It happens constantly. So the moment you board, before you fully settle in, check your seat. Is the armrest movable? Does the leg room match what you were promised? Is your companion actually seated next to you? If anything is wrong, you have a narrow window to fix it before the cabin fills up and options disappear. Find a flight attendant immediately and say, I arranged a seating accommodation through your accessibility desk. Can you confirm it's been noted for this flight? Calm, specific, early. That's the combination that works. Your defense. Check your accommodation the moment you sit down. Speak up before pushback, not after. Thing number 5. Move your critical medications to your person, not your bag. I want you to think about where your medications are right now. If you were on a plane and something happened, could someone find them in under 30 seconds? If the answer is no, this one's for you. Flight attendants, responding to a medical event on board, are working fast, often in a small space, with other passengers watching. They will ask you where your medication is. If you have to say, it's in my blue bag in the overhead bin in the purple pouch in the front pocket, you have already lost critical time. The rule is simple. The moment you board and stow your carry-on, take your critical medications out of that bag and put them on your body. Front shirt pocket, jacket pocket, small pouch worn around your neck. Somewhere accessible without standing up, reaching overhead, or digging through a bag. Critical medications means nitroglycerin, blood thinners, heart medications, blood pressure pills, insulin, EpiPens, inhalers, anything that becomes urgent fast. A 64-year-old woman with a known heart condition had her nitroglycerin in her checked luggage. I won't tell you what happened next because this is a travel channel, not a cautionary medical documentary, but I will tell you that checked luggage and critical cardiac medication should never appear in the same sentence. Even if you've never had a medical event in your life, altitude and cabin pressure change how your body behaves. The version of you at 35,000 feet is not identical to the version of you at sea level. Your medications should be on your body. Every flight, no exceptions. Your defense, board the plane, stow the bag, transfer medications to your person. In that order. Every time. Thing number 4. Do the pre-flight circulation routine. Nobody talks about deep vein thrombosis. 3 words that every traveler over 60 should know and almost nobody acts on until it's too late. A blood clot forming in the deep veins of your legs, typically the calves, is a genuine risk on flights over 3 hours, and the risk increases with age, with certain medications, and with immobility. Here's what most people do about it. Nothing. They sit down, they get comfortable, and they don't move for 4 hours. And then they wonder why their ankles look like water balloons when they land. Here's what you should do instead, starting the moment you sit down, before the plane even moves. Roll your ankles in full circles, 10 rotations each direction. Flex and point your feet 20 times. Press your heels into the floor and lift your toes. Then lift your heels. Alternate for 30 seconds. Tighten and release your calf muscles. Do this sequence before pushback, then repeat it every 45 minutes during the flight. Set that same hydration alarm to remind you. If you were prescribed compression socks by your doctor, put them on before you board, not mid-flight in an airplane bathroom, which I promise you is an experience nobody needs. Trust me, I've tried. There are not enough square inches in that room for the gymnastics required. A 69-year-old retired postal worker who spent decades on his feet started this routine after his doctor flagged mild circulation concerns. He does it on every flight now. He calls it his secret pre-flight workout. And frankly, I think he's onto something. Your defense: start the circulation routine before pushback. Repeat it every 45 minutes. Compression socks go on before you board. Thing number 3, introduce yourself to your neighbor. There's a real reason now. Before you skip this one because you're not a small talk person, let me be very clear. This is not about small talk. This is about survival strategy, lightly disguised as small talk. Here's the reality of flying after 60. If you experience a medical event, a dizzy spell, a moment of confusion, a drop in blood sugar, the person most likely to notice first is the person sitting 18 inches to your left, not the flight attendant who is managing a cabin of 170 passengers, not the pilots who are behind a locked door, the person right next to you. A brief introduction, 30 seconds, establishes you as a real human being to that person, rather than a stranger to be ignored. It dramatically increases the likelihood that they will notice if something seems wrong and flag a flight attendant. You don't need to announce your medical history, just make contact. Hi, I'm Margaret. Long flight ahead of us. That's it. You've just converted a stranger into an accidental ally, and here's the bonus that nobody mentions. If you need help reaching the overhead bin, need someone to watch your belongings while you use the restroom, or need an extra hand during deplaning, you now have someone who actually knows your name. The psychology of that is significant. People help people they've met. They walk past strangers. Your defense: say hello before the plane pulls back. First name only is fine. 30 seconds is enough. Thing number 2, screenshot your connecting flight information. This one is for anyone who has ever stood at a gate, stared at a departures board, and felt that specific flavor of panic that only comes from not knowing if your connection is still where you left it. The moment you board your first flight, before you put your phone in airplane mode, screenshot 3 things: your connecting flight number, your connecting gate, and the departure time of that connection. Here's why this matters more in 2026 than it ever has before. Flight schedules shift constantly. Gates change. Connections get moved to different terminals while you're in the air with no Wi-Fi. And when you land after a long flight, your brain is not at its sharpest. You're tired, possibly stiff, possibly dehydrated, despite that alarm I told you to set. You should not be relying on memory or a live app that needs Wi-Fi to load while 300 people are trying to get off the plane at the same time. A screenshot works offline. It works when the airport Wi-Fi is slow. It works when your hands are full and you have 35 minutes to make a connection across a terminal the size of a small country. A 67-year-old retired engineer missed a connection in Chicago because the gate had changed and he couldn't get his airline app to load in time. He had no screenshot. He had no written note. He spent 4 hours in O'Hare, rebooked on a later flight. He told me afterward, it was the most expensive 30 seconds I never took. Your defense: screenshot the connection details before airplane mode. Keep it on your home screen for the duration of the flight. Thing number 1, Identify the complaint resolution official before you need one. Here it is, the one that gate agents across America genuinely hope you go your entire flying life without learning. And I mean that. I have spoken with enough former airline employees to know that this particular piece of information makes a certain type of airline staff very uncomfortable. Every single U.S. airline is legally required under federal law to have a complaint resolution official, a CRO, available at every airport they serve during every hour they operate. This is not a rumor. This is not a technicality buried in a footnote. It is a federally mandated position with specific training, specific authority, and a specific job to resolve disputes involving passenger rights and disability accommodations on the spot. Here's what a CRO can do that a gate agent cannot. A CRO can override a denial of wheelchair assistance. They can reverse a pre-boarding refusal. They can mandate seating accommodations that a gate agent claimed weren't available. They have authority that regular airline staff simply do not have. Now, why am I putting this in the do it after you board list? Because boarding is when things go wrong. That's when you discover your accommodation wasn't noted. That's when the aisle seat you arranged isn't available. That's when the gate agent tells you the wheelchair you requested somehow wasn't logged. And that's when most passengers over 60 do one of two things. They accept it and suffer through the flight, or they argue loudly and get nowhere. The third option, the option almost nobody uses, is to stay calm, stay seated, and say 5 words to the nearest flight attendant. I need the CRO, please. Not an explanation, not a complaint, not a demand, just those 5 words. What follows will move faster than almost anything else in airline customer service because the CRO's entire job is to show up and fix the problem before it becomes a federal complaint. A 62-year-old woman boarded a flight and discovered her prearranged movable armrest seat had been given to another passenger. The gate agent told her nothing else was available. She did not argue. She did not cry. She said, "I need to speak with your complaint resolution official." She was moved to a premium economy seat with extra legroom within 8 minutes. No charge, no argument. The system exists, it works, and it belongs to you. Your defense: the moment something goes wrong after you board, before you raise your voice, before you give up, say those 5 words. I need the CRO, please. Write it on a card if you have to. Put it in your wallet next to your boarding pass. That phrase is worth more than any travel app, any loyalty status, any upgrade request you've ever made. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 did you not know before watching this video? Drop the